In a distant land where kings ruled with thunder in their voices and silence meant shame, there lived a ruler who had not spoken in years. His kingdom withered, his people despaired, and just when all hope seemed lost, a goat began to speak, not in bleats, but in perfect words, bold, wise, and strange.
In a quiet, forgotten valley between two proud and ancient mountains, there lay a small, lush kingdom named Aremu. It was a land of vibrant green field, a gentle bubbling brooks, and whispering forests that held old secrets. But the most remarkable thing about Aremu was not its breathtaking beauty or its profound peace. It was the way the kingdom seemed to exist beyond the reach of the outside world, so hidden that even the most detailed maps forgot its name. Yet, its people remembered, for they lived beneath the wise and just rule of King Oludele, the revered ruler of Aremu, the Valley Kingdom. King Oludele was a tall man with shoulders like carved stone and eyes as deep as midnight wells. His skin was the color of polished ebony, his head thick but silvered early from years of silent sorrow. His robes were always immaculate, woven from indigo and gold threads, trailing softly on the marble floors of his palace. But no crown ever sat on his head. He refused it. He believed a crown weighed heavier on the soul than it did on the skull. He had not spoken a word in 22 years. He walked like a ghost through his palace, his footsteps silent, his presence heavy. Servants bowed but never greeted him. Nobles feared him but never questioned him. Even the winds seemed to hush when he passed. Nobody knew why he kept silent. Some said a spirit stole his voice on the day of his coronation. Others claimed he was caused by a witch he had wronged in his youth. But the truth was buried like a seed in dry soil, hidden, waiting to sprout. Then came the goat, on a morning that seemed like any other, sky painted in soft pinks, bird waving music into the wind. The royal garden stirred with unusual noise. There, beneath the massive Iroko tree that stood like a giant garden in the middle of the palace grounds, sat the king, sipping from a small clay cup. The tree was old, its bark twisted like ancient scars, its branches home to countless birds and secrets. Then a brown goat walked into the garden. This was no ordinary goat. It was a large, muscular creature with shaggy fur that shimmered reddish-brown in the sunlight. Its wolves struck the marble tiles with confidence. Around its neck was a silver bell, but the strangest part was its eyes, human-like, golden brown, full of sharp intelligence. It trotted to the king, stopped a few feet away, tilted its head, and spoke. "Why so quiet, Your Majesty? Or do you enjoy watching trees more than people?" The voice was crisp, male, and carried a smug confidence, deep, yet mocking. The king slowly turned his head, eyes narrowing. The goat stared back, chewing lazily on a hibiscus leaf. The silence that followed was thick. Then the bird seemed confused. A few guards nearby heard the voice and came running, spears raised, armor clicking. When they saw it was a goat, they hesitated. Then the goat turned to them and said, "You came to arrest me for trespassing? My apologies, gentlemen. I didn't know your majesty hired fashionable armed cowards." The guards dropped their weapons and ran like terrified children. From that day, the goat became an unexpected guest and then a resident of the royal palace. His name, he claimed, was Taba. Taba the Great, Taba the Goat. He followed King Oludele everywhere, to the throne room, to the royal bath, even once to a secret chamber only the king used. He joked, he sang, he gossiped, and he poked fun at everyone, from high-ranking officials to lonely maidens. The palace maids, especially, were both annoyed and charmed. They were young women in colorful wrappers and neatly braided hair, always giggling behind closed hands as Taba tried to woo them with poorly rhymed poetry like, "O fairy maiden, your eyes shine brighter than the moonlight on a yam leaf." Even the king's advisors, a group of rotund men with bushy mustaches and heavily embroidered agbadas, grew tired of the goat's sharp tongue. Yet, the king never for once told the goat to leave. In fact, he never said anything at all, not a word. Taba would walk beside him, speaking loudly and boldly, asking questions no one dared to ask. Did the silence choose you, or did you choose it? Is your heart sealed shut, or are you afraid of what might escape from it? Do you miss the sound of your own voice? The king, tall and regal, remained as unreadable as ever. He only glanced at the goat, and sometimes with a flicker of something, anger, amusement, perhaps pain. No one could tell. Then came the drought. It began slowly. First, the rivers shrank, their beds cracking open like dry mouths. Then the crops turned yellow, then brown, then dust. The cattle grew thinner, their ribs like skeleton hands pressed against their skin. People started murmuring that the gods were angry. They came to the palace in droves, farmers with calloused hands, mothers carrying hungry babies, elders with heavy beads around their necks. They knelt before the silent king. "Speak to the gods, your majesty," they cried. "Speak and ask for rain. We die without it." But Oludele said nothing, not even a nod. Then one morning, without a word, he rose before the sun, wearing a simple white robe, barefoot. He walking through the silent palace. Taba followed, Taba the Great. They left the gate and began the long climb to Echo's Ridge, a sacred mountain set to carry voices to the heavens. The villagers followed from afar, their eyes wide with curiosity and hope. The climb was steep, sharp rocks tore at their feet. The wind howled like wolves, cold and unforgiving. But the king walked like a man on a mission, and Taba trudged beside him, unusually quiet. Finally, they reached the top. The wind roared, Clouds gathered above like waiting judges. The king stood at the edge, looking over his drying land. Taba stood beside him and said softly, "You've carried it long enough." The king did not respond. "You buried your brother. You buried your voice." And him, Taba continued, "You buried them under that Iroko tree." The people did not know, but I do. Your silence isn't just snub, it's fear. The king's hand trembled. His chest rose and fell rapidly. Then the goat said, "Speak it, free yourself, or this land will perish along with your soul." And for the first time in 22 years, the king's lips parted. His voice came out like a whisper made of sand. "I killed my brother." Taba turned slowly, his eyes deep and calm. Oludele continued, his voice cracking. "We were young, fighting, angry, and I pushed him. He stumbled, fell, his head struck a stone, and he died. I buried him beneath the Iroko tree. I never told a soul. My crown, my silence, they are both built on that grave." His knees buckled. He fell to the earth, hands trembling. Taba walked to him, gently nodding his shoulder. Then it happened. A loud rumble. The skies opened. Rain, heavy, life-giving rain poured from the heavens, soaking the mountain, the land, the people below. The villagers wept with joy. The rivers rolled again. The soil drank greedily. But when the king looked up, Taba was gone. No bell sound, no footprints, just a few thoughts of brown hair and a faint scent of hibiscus. The almighty Taba had gone. To this day, no one knew where the goat came from. Some said he was a spirit sent by the gods. Others believed he was a reincarnation of the king's brother, came not to hunt, but to heal. As for King Oludele, he never kept silent again. He ruled with gentle words and deep wisdom. His voice was soft, but when he spoke, the world listened. And though they still called him the Silent King, those who remember the goat knew the truth. He was not a king of silence. He was a king who found his voice.